Have you ever found yourself looking at your phone and realizing no one's called in days? Maybe you scroll through your contacts and wonder, where did everyone go? The lunch dates aren't as frequent as they used to be. The group chats have gone quiet. And suddenly you find yourself sitting in the stillness of your own company, wondering if that means something's wrong. But what if I told you that there's nothing wrong at all? What if, in fact, this season of life, this quieter, slower, more solitary time, isn't something to be feared or fixed, but embraced? You see, somewhere along the way, we've been told that being alone means being lonely, that if your phone isn't buzzing or your calendar isn't full, then something must be missing. But that couldn't be further from the truth, because after 70, something beautiful begins to happen. You start to realize that joy doesn't come from quantity, it comes from quality. And you no longer need a big social circle to feel full. You just need the right kind of connection, including the connection you have with yourself. Today, I want to talk with you heart to heart about why it's perfectly okay, wonderful even, to have a smaller circle as you age. And more importantly, how to find peace, purpose, and even joy in solitude. Not isolation, but real nourishing solitude. The kind that fills you up from the inside out. Let's start with something that might feel surprisingly comforting. Your social needs naturally shift with age. You're not imagining it. You're not withdrawing for no reason. It's your brain and your spirit recognizing that you don't need as much social stimulation as you once did. In your 30s and 40s, you might have juggled a dozen relationships, co-workers, neighbors, old college friends, family, friends of friends. It was constant. But now, you crave depth over small talk, meaning over maintenance. And that shift isn't just emotional, it's biological. Studies show that as we age, we become more selective about our relationships. Our brains are wired to seek out what's rewarding and let go of what's draining. So if you've noticed yourself stepping back from certain people or preferring quiet afternoons to noisy gatherings, there's nothing wrong with you. You're actually responding to a deep, natural wisdom. One of the first keys to joyful solitude is learning how to enjoy your own company again. Not just tolerate it, but really enjoy it. Think about when you were a child. You could spend hours lost in your imagination, building things, drawing, exploring the backyard. There was a freedom in that. And somewhere along the way, life got busy. Other people's voices got louder. But that childlike curiosity, it's still there, waiting. Maybe now it shows up in your garden, or when you're watching the birds at the feeder, or in the quiet joy of making the perfect cup of tea and sitting by the window, just breathing. These moments aren't empty. They're full of life. They just ask us to slow down enough to notice. If the thought of being alone still feels intimidating, here's something to try. Start small. Instead of filling the silence with noise, TV, radio scrolling, choose a few minutes each day to simply be with yourself. You could write in a journal, reflect on the best part of your day, or even ask yourself a question you haven't thought about in years, like, what did I love most about being a kid? You'd be amazed at the memories and stories that surface when you give yourself space to hear them. Another powerful shift is letting go of the pressure to stay connected in the way the world expects. Just because everyone else is on social media or checking in constantly doesn't mean you have to. The truth is, you don't need constant interaction to feel valued. What matters more is the quality of the connection, not the frequency. Think of a friend you may not talk to often, but every time you do, it's real, easy, honest. That's gold. That's worth more than a dozen shallow check-ins. And sometimes you may find that the person you connect with most deeply is yourself. And here's something I want you to really let sink in. Your worth isn't measured by how many people surround you. It's measured by how well you care for yourself, how kind you are to your own heart, and how open you remain to the quiet wisdom of your own life. You've lived through so much, loved, lost, struggled, succeeded. You carry stories that younger generations could never imagine. That wisdom, it's a gift, and solitude gives it the space to bloom. Sometimes people worry that solitude means giving up, that pulling back socially is a sign they're fading. But I see it differently. I see it as stepping into a new kind of strength, one that's rooted in self-trust. You no longer need others to validate your worth. You don't need the crowd to feel seen, because you've learned how to see yourself. And that is power. Let's be honest. Friendships change over the years. People move. They grow apart. Sometimes they leave this earth, and those changes hurt. It's okay to grieve them, to feel the space they leave behind. But over time, that space can become sacred. It can become a place where you rediscover who you are without needing to explain yourself to anyone. And when you do spend time with others, it becomes more meaningful. You're not chasing numbers. You're cherishing moments. A quiet chat over coffee, a walk with someone who gets you, a phone call that lasts 10 minutes but leaves your heart warm for hours. Those are the connections that matter now. The truth is, solitude isn't the absence of love. It's the presence of peace. And once you learn how to find joy within yourself, you bring a whole new kind of energy into every interaction. You're no longer trying to fill a void. You're simply sharing the overflow. There's something really special that happens when you stop chasing noise and start listening to your own rhythm. It's like suddenly you can hear yourself again. Your thoughts get clearer. Your memories get softer, sweeter, and you begin to notice the little things. How good your morning coffee smells, the way sunlight dances across the kitchen floor, the sound of the wind through the trees. These aren't just moments, they're treasures, and they often go unnoticed when life is too loud. Now let's talk about something else that can help you lean into solitude without feeling like you're giving something up. Creativity. You don't need to be a painter or a poet to be creative. You just need curiosity. That's it. Whether it's writing a few lines in a notebook, rearranging your living room, planting something new in the garden, or even trying a new recipe, these are all forms of expression. They're ways of saying, I'm still here, I'm still growing, I still have something to say. When your world gets quieter, you finally have the space to explore these parts of yourself. Parts that maybe got put on the back burner for decades because you were busy raising a family, building a career, taking care of others. But now it's your time. Not in a selfish way, but in a soul-nourishing, deeply important way. This chapter of life is yours to shape, and there's no better tool than creativity to help you do that. And let's not forget, solitude doesn't mean cutting yourself off from people. It just means choosing your connections more intentionally. Maybe you have one or two people in your life who truly understand you. People you don't need to entertain or impress. You can just sit together in comfortable silence or talk about anything and everything. Those relationships are like warm blankets on a cold day. You don't need a whole closet full of them. Just one or two that really fit. Sometimes the most important relationship to nurture isn't with other people, it's with your own body. As we get older, our bodies change, and sometimes those changes feel like betrayals, aches, fatigue, slower movement. But the truth is, your body has carried you through so much. It's still showing up for you. It still responds to care. A short walk, gentle stretching, a little breath work, or even dancing around the living room. These are acts of connection too. They ground you in the present. They remind you that you're still alive, still capable, still vibrant in your own way. And here's something that often gets overlooked. Your inner voice, that quiet little narrator in your head, what is it saying to you lately? Is it kind? Is it encouraging? Or is it filling you with doubts, telling you you're not as valuable without a full social calendar or a big circle of friends? If that inner voice has gotten a little harsh, it's okay. You can soften it. You can talk to yourself the way you would talk to a dear friend, gently, with compassion. You can remind yourself that being alone doesn't mean being forgotten. It means being present with yourself, for yourself. You know, there's a kind of freedom that comes with age that no one really tells you about. You stop caring so much about what others think. You stop saying yes to things out of obligation. And if you let it, that freedom can feel like a second wind. You get to decide what your days look like, who you let in, what truly matters. And more often than not, it's not the big gatherings or the constant contact that fills you up. It's the peace of waking up without pressure, the calm of a slow morning, the beauty of doing things at your own pace. There's a strength in that, a quiet, powerful strength. And here's another beautiful truth. Solitude can actually deepen your relationships, because when you spend time alone, not out of loneliness, but out of choice, you show up more whole when you're with others. You're not drained or trying to fill a gap. You're already full, and that makes your presence even more meaningful. People feel that. They feel when you're grounded, calm, clear, and that kind of presence is rare these days. It's something others naturally gravitate toward. You become someone people feel safe around, someone who listens more than they talk, someone who isn't rushing to be seen, but quietly shows up with wisdom and warmth. That's a gift, and it only comes when you've made peace with being alone. One of the most healing things you can do is spend time in nature, alone. Whether it's a walk in the park, sitting by a lake, tending to your garden, or just watching the clouds. Nature doesn't rush, it doesn't demand, it just exists. And when you're in that space, you start to remember that you too are a part of something bigger. You don't need to perform. You don't need to prove anything. You're already enough. So many people spend their whole lives trying to be everything for everyone. And at some point, they look up and realize they've lost sight of who they are underneath all that noise. But the beauty of this chapter is that you get to come home to yourself. You get to rediscover the things that make you feel alive, peaceful, inspired, even if no one else is watching. That's the heart of joyful solitude. Not isolation, not giving up on people, but choosing yourself, your peace, your presence, again and again. If you've ever taken a moment to sit quietly with yourself, no distractions, no phone, no television, you might have noticed something surprising. There's a kind of richness there, a sense of depth you can't always access in the middle of a busy room or during back and forth chatter. It's not lonely, it's peaceful. And in that peace, something powerful starts to grow. Clarity. Clarity about what you want, about what matters, about how you want to spend your time, your energy, your attention. After all, time becomes more precious as the years go by, not because you have less of it, but because you've learned how valuable it really is. You've lived through seasons of rush and noise, of giving and doing. And now you get to slow down, not because you've stopped, but because you've earned the right to breathe, reflect, and be. One of the most freeing things is realizing that not everyone has to understand your choices. You might choose to skip a gathering, stay home on a weekend, or spend the afternoon reading instead of catching up with acquaintances. And guess what? That's okay. You're not missing out. You're tuning in. And the truth is, sometimes the most important connections you'll ever make are the ones you form with your own thoughts, dreams, and memories. Think of your inner world like a garden. When you're constantly surrounded by people, it's hard to hear what your soul is asking for. But when things get quiet, when it's just you, you can finally tend to that garden. Pull out some old weeds, plant new seeds, water the parts of yourself that were thirsty for attention. That kind of care doesn't require an audience. It just requires honesty, stillness, and a little love. It also means allowing yourself to rediscover joy in the simple things. We've been conditioned to believe that excitement comes from grand events or constant company, but there is so much delight in the ordinary. Sitting with a warm cup of tea, watching a bird land outside your window, laughing at a memory you haven't thought about in years. These moments may not be big, but they're real. And real is what we're after now, isn't it? Now, if you've ever felt guilty for enjoying your own company, if someone ever made you feel like wanting quiet meant you were antisocial or withdrawn, I want to gently challenge that idea. There's nothing wrong with needing space. There's nothing wrong with saying, I love my peace. In fact, that's a strength, especially in a world that's always telling us to be louder, busier, more available. There's something truly courageous about stepping away from that pressure and saying, I'm enough just as I am. I don't need noise to feel valuable. I don't need a crowd to feel whole. This isn't about pushing people away. It's about honoring your needs. And sometimes what we need most isn't more connection. It's deeper connection with ourselves, with the world around us, with a few meaningful people, not dozens of shallow ones. And here's where the beauty of solitude really shines. It helps you get better at being with people too. When you've taken time to recharge, to reflect, to nourish your mind and heart, you don't show up to conversations feeling empty or overwhelmed. You show up calm, grounded, present. That's a gift, not just to you, but to the people in your life. So if someone reaches out and you feel like saying yes, you'll say it from a place of fullness, not obligation. And if you need to say no, you'll do it with kindness and confidence, knowing that your worth isn't tied to how many invitations you accept or how many people call you their friend. You begin to see that your value isn't in how many people surround you, but in the light you carry, no matter who's around. You start to notice the difference between being alone and being lonely. Loneliness is heavy, it's a longing. But solitude is light, it's freedom. It's choosing your own company and discovering how beautiful that company can be. If you're someone who's still getting used to being alone more often, maybe after retirement, or after losing someone close, or after life naturally shifted, I want to say this: be gentle with yourself. It's okay to grieve the changes. It's okay to miss the way things used to be. But also know this: life isn't done surprising you. There are still new joys waiting, still new layers of yourself to uncover, still peace to be found, even on the quietest days. And some of the most meaningful chapters of life are the ones where we stop trying to be who we used to be and start embracing who we are now. You don't need a big social circle to feel loved. You don't need constant plans to feel fulfilled. What you do need is presence, intention, and the courage to embrace your own beautiful, evolving story. So if today's a quiet day, let it be a good one. Let it be a chance to reconnect with your thoughts, with your body, with your breath. Let it be a reminder that peace is not something you have to go out and find. It's already within you. Every slow morning, every walk, every moment you choose calm over chaos, you're doing something powerful. You're building a life that feels good from the inside out. You're not falling behind. You're stepping into a deeper kind of wisdom, one that doesn't need a crowd to feel complete. Sometimes people worry that if they don't keep a large circle of friends, they'll end up isolated or forgotten. But the truth is, it's not about the number of people around you. It's about the quality of the moments you share, even when those moments are with yourself. One meaningful conversation, one genuine smile, one warm memory can feed the soul more than a dozen small talks or surface-level interactions. When you've lived long enough to know what truly matters, you start choosing depth over volume, sincerity over popularity. And there's great wisdom in that. There's also a powerful sense of self that comes when you realize you don't need to be busy to be valuable. In fact, a slower, simpler rhythm can bring a kind of joy that's easy to miss when life is constantly noisy. The long, unhurried cup of coffee, the way the sunlight hits your favorite chair in the afternoon, the quiet thought that makes you smile when no one else is around. That's the good stuff, and it doesn't depend on anyone else's presence. Of course, that doesn't mean we don't need connection. We do. We're human. But what we often forget is that connection doesn't always come from having a calendar full of events or a contact list full of names. Sometimes it comes from a letter you write to someone you care about, a phone call to a friend who truly listens, a neighborly wave that turns into a heartfelt chat. These small, real moments. Those are the ones that fill your heart and keep you grounded. And when you create space in your life, emotional space, mental space, by not overfilling it with too many relationships or obligations, you make room for the connections that truly matter. You can actually be more present, more attentive, more loving, not because you're trying harder, but because you've cleared out the noise. Solitude gives you that space. And within that space, you rediscover parts of yourself you may have set aside during busier years. Maybe you pick up painting again. Maybe you dive into old journals and remember dreams you once had. Maybe you find a new passion, gardening, poetry, music, that wasn't possible when life was full of distractions. And maybe, just maybe, you start to realize that your own company isn't something to escape. It's something to enjoy. You become your own best friend, your own source of comfort and inspiration. And that doesn't mean you're cutting people out. It just means you found peace in being alone without being lonely. There's something deeply empowering about being content with your own presence. It builds confidence. It fosters independence. And most importantly, it gives you the freedom to live on your own terms. You don't have to chase friendships or force connections just to feel normal. You're already whole. And here's something else I want you to remember. Just because your circle is smaller now doesn't mean your impact is. Sometimes the quietest people carry the strongest influence. Your wisdom, your stories, your kindness, they matter. You still inspire. You still contribute. You still light up the world around you, even if it's just one person at a time. So give yourself permission to enjoy this season of life without pressure to perform or impress. Let your days be filled with what truly brings you joy. Let your energy be spent on what lifts your spirit, not what drains it. And if there are days when you feel a little bit lonely, that's okay too. It's a human feeling. It comes and goes like weather. The key is not to let it define you. You can acknowledge it, sit with it, even talk to it gently, and then choose to focus on the blessings still around you. The cozy blanket, the blooming flowers, the old photo that brings back a sweet memory. You are still surrounded by beauty, still worthy of joy, still capable of growing, learning, and loving, even if your circle looks different than it used to. So whether today is quiet or busy, peaceful or a little messy, know this: you're doing just fine. In fact, you're doing more than fine. You're showing up, you're growing into yourself in new ways, and you're learning one of life's most underrated skills: how to be truly at peace in your own skin. If anything in this video has resonated with you, if it made you feel a little more seen, a little more hopeful, I'd love to hear from you. Tell me your thoughts in the comments. What do you enjoy most about your alone time? What have you discovered about yourself in this season of life? You never know who your words might help just by sharing. And if you'd like more videos like this, encouraging, thoughtful conversations made just for folks like you, please give this one a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps more people find this space, this community, this reminder that we're never truly alone in what we're feeling. Because at the end of the day, joyful solitude isn't about being separate from the world. It's about being more connected to yourself and more intentional about how you connect with others. You don't need a crowd to feel alive. You don't need noise to feel relevant. You don't need a dozen voices to know that yours still matters. You've walked through so many seasons of life. You've grown through the hard times and celebrated the good. And now is your time to savor, to simplify, to choose presence over pressure and joy over obligation. You're not less social. You're more selective. You're not growing isolated. You're growing inward, stronger, softer, wiser. Here's to you in this beautiful, quiet, powerful season you're in. You deserve every bit of peace it brings, and I'm right here cheering you on.